would like to thank the judging panel, Noga, Alex, Ran. Thank you all. And our next speaker is Dr. Alex Coman, an innovator, an entrepreneur, a consultant. And Alex will now discuss the questions that entrepreneurs and investors ask themselves time and again. How the hell do you decide over the valuation of a company? Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you. If somebody has a clicker here, I will sell my soul for a click. My kingdom for a clicker. Okay. The problem that we're all dealing with is how can we tell who will succeed and who will not? And the Duce is always right, but we are not. And in fact, when we're talking about ventures and due diligence, we make massive mistakes. My first mistake was Confi. If you remember, it was a keyboard for babies. And I suggested not to invest in it, and actually it turned out that it was bad as a tool, but was very good as laundering money for real estate. So things are more complex than they seem. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look at a maturity model. And this maturity model basically looks at what technology is. And technology, if we look at the word, is a combination of systematic treatment of art. So right now, assessing startups is an art, which means that it depends on the people. We make massive mistake, and we would like to turn it into a technology. Now, this is one example. This is a company that says that they want to grow hair on the head, and they actually succeed in growing hair on the ears of pigs. Now, it's easier to grow hair on the ears. I tried that and I succeeded. It's more difficult growing hair on the head. So there's a very good chance that this company will not succeed. How can we assess the probability of success? So I want to take an example from the entertainment industry, from the movie industry. And here you see a massive list of flops. These are movies that lost 88 million, 77 million, 150 million. So these are massive losers of money. This is one reason, because many movies are with special effects, so you do not actually see what's going to happen eventually. So what has happened in the movie industry is Netflix. Netflix is using big data, and using big data and finding out what people like, they're using collaborative filtering. And as a result, Netflix, this is an example from the Netflix Prime, where a team won $1 million from being able to guess what people would like. And actually, Netflix came up with House of Cards, a massive success. And also, Orange is the New Black. So this is an example of an algorithm. Now, when we're thinking about startups, such as the companies that we saw right now, we're thinking about a pipeline. In the pipeline, we start with a lot of garbage, a lot of noise, many bad ideas, people who don't know what they're talking about. And as we move along the pipeline, we get smarter companies, better understanding of the business, better investment, more reliable. So this is an example, for instance, for pharmaceuticals pipeline, where you start with 10,000 compounds. Eventually, 5 compounds are tried on 100 people. If they survive, we try it on 500. If they survive, we try it on 5,000. So that's the way it works. Now, we see this mechanism work all over. This is an example of a gate. In this gate, you present your concept to judges, similar to what we see here. And based on that, they decide if they want to invest in your idea or not. Now, when we think about the project, I like to use the RPG concept. First of all, because I spent many nights sleeping with an RPG, and I recommend it to everybody. It's very good in bed, it is smooth, it is slick, and it doesn't snore. But also, RPG stands for resources, process, and gap. So every project, every startup we're thinking about needs resources. In this case, we're talking about the people, as these guys presented themselves. The process, that's the go-to market. Do they understand the financial, the technology, the people impact? And gap is the architecture of their product. So when we're thinking about these elements, if I want to give you a bad example of an RPG, obviously Microsoft is the worst example for everything. So here we look at Microsoft Vista, 10,000 people, 200,000 a year, 5 years. We're talking here about $10 billion down the drain. Okay? So that's an example of a bad RPG. What I want to do is I want to take the maturity model, which is famous to all people here who are involved in software development. And the maturity model looks at how mature a company is. We have the initial level, which means we're just a bunch of guys hacking keyboards. The higher level, repeatable, means we have some visibility. We do some project management. Defined means we actually have a life cycle philosophy. Managed, we have some measures of performance. And finally, optimizing means we actually improve what we do. So I will start with the team maturity. How do I judge team maturity? Now, of course, I'm not coming up with a final answer, but actually with a proposition that is going to be refined and refined and refined until we become better predictors of success. So if I want to take Gartner's model of leadership, one element is vision, the other is ability to execute. So can these people imagine a nice thing? And are they powerful enough to turn it into reality? So if we think about Steve Ballmer, Bill Gates had the vision that just the way we have Windows on all the PCs, we should have Windows on our mobile phones. How many people here have Windows Mobile? This is Ballmer's failure, so for that reason, he was kicked out of Microsoft. So when we are thinking about a team, I like to use this model which rates people as child, adult, and parent. So we all start as children. Some of us grow to be adults, which means that we take our destiny in our hands. Very few of us become parents, which means that we can actually look at people in the team and see how we could give them the best tasks and objectives. And I like this concept from Max Levchin. He started by saying, wait, the naked woman, she's too anxious. So Max Levchin says, my first company I started failed with a great bang. The second one failed a little bit less, still failed. The third one, proper failed, but it was kind of okay. I recovered quickly. The fourth one almost didn't fail, but it didn't feel really great. The fifth company was PayPal. So this is the philosophy that we have. This guy is a loser, he's a clown, he's an idiot, he's a nobody, he's a genius. And the Max Levchin, the genius, is obviously a product of a maturity process. He started as a loser, but he learned many things throughout the process. He turned out to be very determined because he fell and was hit, but still got up on his feet to be hit once more. So this is basically the type of people we're looking for, people who can take a beating. This is an example of a pornography website called Bomis, and it has a great deal for $3. You can see many naked women. And the website was not a big success. As a result, the guy switched from that to establishing Wikipedia. So it is interesting, I think, to see how a guy switches from one failure to another huge success. If I want to show an example where a guy has too much vision, this is Agassi, who managed to blow something like $500 million by mismanaging Better Place, which is a very sad story from my point of view. And that's an example where somebody is so high in the air that they are not connected with the ground. And for that reason, we have the Adigis model, which says that you need the entrepreneur. This is a guy who can dream. And I give Leonardo as an example, as a bad example. I love Leonardo, but I would not invest in any Leonardo. The helicopter did not make money. The airplane did not make money. This giant frog did not make money. So he's a brilliant guy. You would like to do a lot of stuff, but not invest a single dollar in him. So that's one guy who can dream. Now you need to lick him to the ground. And here you're talking about the producer. I write Che Guevara as a guy with a machine gun and a machete who can hack everybody on his way and turn the dream of the entrepreneur into reality. And that's what Agassi was missing. Somebody who would take Agassi, pull him to the ground, and come up with something much more real. איך הזמן שלי? So if we're thinking about Ocean 11, the beauty in Ocean 11 is that every guy here has a different dream. Like this tiny guy, he wants to do sports, and this guy wants to be a crook, and this guy wants to be a project manager, and he wants to to blow stuff up, and he's a hacker. So that every one of them is different. And this is opposed to what we see here in Boeing's, this is Boeing's chairman of the board, CEO, and replacement. They all look like they came out of a 3D printer. They do not have ties. They wear the same pants, the same shirt, the same jacket, the same glasses, the same hair. This is an example where a CEO hires mini-me, because we all like to be surrounded by our mini-me's, and as a result, we think inside the box. Worse, if you look at the mini-me tries very hard to be like the boss. Here you see Steve Jobs, black shirt, jeans. Tim Cook, black shirt, jeans. Vice President of Marketing does not know how to dress. So it takes him a whole week to actually blend in and wear black shirt and jeans. That's not something you want in a company. You want to see different people, different way of thinking, a rich human element. That's what you get as a result. You get this ridiculous North Korean 3D printer element where all the women have the same haircut, the same smile, the same thoughts. This is a catastrophe. And when we look at people who were too genius, actually things did not come out too well. Okay. The next dimension that I want to talk about, okay, let's. That was the flag of Poland, by the way. The next element of maturity is the process, the go-to-market. And here we're thinking about to what extent do you understand the arena? To what extent do you understand your supply chain, your distribution chain, your product management, and to what extent is your arena vision mature or childish? And one very sad example is the Segway, because it's a brilliant technological product, and it was expected to sell 10,000 Segways per week. I doubt if they sell 10,000 within a year. So that's something that we're scared shitless of. So if we want to assess the size of a market, we want to see some maturity, like this company that says, here is our competition, and here is how we're going to nail them. Okay, they cannot actually solve the problem for Pekingese dogs, so Pekingese dogs cannot use the product, but other than that, they can make a lot of money. Of course, when we're using this pipeline, we make mistakes. This is false positive. Microsoft is the mother of all false positive, where you launch stupid ideas like these dogs, Merlin, etc. And first of all, you want to kill Clippy. You actually want to kill the guy who invented Clippy, because he is to blame. This is the most famous false negative, in the sense that Xerox Star developed this computer and said who would want to buy a computer with a mouse, graphics, and file. They threw it into the trash. We're lucky that Steve Jobs passed by and this became the Macintosh. So that's the idea of maturity of the process. I will skip the attack angles, but this is the standard attack angle that we see, which is called skimming. Here is the iPhone for $600, $400, $300, $200, and $100. That's the way we're used to looking at products being launched. But then we saw, this is the same thing about the Tesla. Then we saw other products that are launched using storming. Storming skips the niche strategy. And here we see examples such as movies that are launched to theaters, then hospitality, then DVD. A very famous strategy for many of the startups here is freemium. Freemium means I launch the product, I become the de facto standard, and that's how I make money. One example is Tinder, which starts as a website for incidental sex, I would think that would be the definition, or love. Okay, quick love. So what Tinder is doing is you can use Tinder for free, but if you're over a certain age, then you need to pay money, and by paying money, you get the plus, which enables you unlimited likes and things of the sort, so you can love more people. And love is important. So that's an example of the freemium model. Okay. The last element that I want to talk about is the gap. And in gap, I look at the architecture. To what extent is your architecture effective? And to what extent is your cash flow reasonable? So here we see various architectures, and I like the RPG architecture because it's an empty, it has no explosives in between, and as a result causes a lot of damage. And this is the idea of focusing your startup, or the concept that you all know as minimum viable product. Okay, minimum viable product means you use fewer elements. This is an example of a bad vision, and here it's an example from Apple. Apple wanted to develop a navigation software that shows us the way in 3D. This is very difficult. Okay, let's look at some bugs. Here you see Sodom and Gomorrah, the end of the world, Armageddon, Ashdod port. And these are all bugs because it's very difficult in real time to describe the world in 3D. This bug I like in particular, you drive on the road, you climb on the wall of the building with nice greenery on the side. So it's very difficult. And actually, Tim Cook tells people down Waze because we failed. If we think about Waze, Waze is the opposite. The road is just a line. We are colorful sperms running along this line. And all we want to know is how to get there without traffic and without police. So this is a pearl, this is a white elephant. Tim Cook asks forgiveness for his failure and cuts off 2 heads. Vice President Retail and Operating. So I would like to conclude with this example because we talked about Africa. In Africa, they have a very severe AIDS epidemic, and it turns out that circumcised people do not get AIDS as easily. And so the problem is, how do we circumcise all of Africa? It's difficult. There's a lot of foreskins to circumcise. And what are we short of? Moils, okay? The Africa does not have many moils. So here you have an Israeli startup. There are 3 rings. You should try it at home. You put the rings on your foreskin. You walk with that with a week until you have gangrena, and then you cut it with the scissors. So that's a very lovely startup. By the way, it does go with the concept of getting money from the UN and other non-for-profit sources. So if I want to conclude, the point is this. The point is, this is actually, no, this is the bomb from Boston, so I will skip it. The concept is as follows. You want to make sure that you have a company that does not get you into a huge hole in terms of cash flow, because then there's a very nice chance it would go bankrupt. This is a bad example. It's a company that was financed by Rafael Ben Chaim, which actually cooks food. It identifies the elements, and they spend, from my point of view, too much money on a product that is not that attractive, while they could make a lot of money much, much earlier. So, if I want to conclude, when I'm thinking about what we need a pipeline. We need to look at companies in terms of maturity, diagnose them the way we're doing here. How mature are they in terms of resources, leadership team? How mature is the process? Do they see their go-to-market? And how mature is their architecture and cash flow? So you can see companies that are at different maturity levels. And as these companies start running along the pipeline from the status of babies to the status of adolescent, all the way to mature. This is Ayn Rand, by the way. So you would see VCs looking at them, selecting the companies that they like according to maturity, and investing money. As the companies run along this line, they become more and more mature. the VCs can select them, and we'll get a smarter process. So, thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much.